Hey out there, today we've got Pac-Land on the Atari Lynx handheld. And what stands out to me about this game is that the original arcade version came out a year before Super Mario Bros. And is quite similar. I believe this was the first side-scrolling platform game. So it's historically significant, but how does it all play? I mean, why is Super Mario Bros. Remembered? And Pac-Land kind of faded out. Well, let's boot it up and see. These are good friends of Pac-Man in Pac-Land. I love that. This game is relentlessly cheerful. And man, the older I get, the more I appreciate stuff like that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just that as the the news gets so grim, and I can always retreat back to Pac-Land on my Lynx to kind of retreat, I suppose. And the worst thing that happens in this is that you get hit by a car or something, which I guess is kind of bad. I mean, I don't know what happens to Pac-Man when he gets hit by a car, but it's probably not too pretty. So what do you do in Pac-Land? Well, the manual says you must avoid deadly ghosts and perilous obstacles to help the beautiful fairy princess Buttercup find her way through Pac-Land. And Buttercup here is hidden under Pac-Man's hat, and I guess after every stage he lets her out for a little bit so she can get some fresh air. I imagine that riding under Pac-Man's hat as he's jogging at full speed through all these environments and being chased by ghosts is pretty sweaty and gross. Now, Pac-Man must cross a variety of terrains to reach the end of the game. And these are a city, like you saw at the beginning, the forest where I am now, a desert, a canyon, water ruins with all these ledges, and a castle with all kinds of locked doors. It's kind of a maze. So there's a good variety of environments, and they each have their own hazards, and their own secrets as well. For example, in the city, some of the fire hydrants can be pushed to reveal power-ups, or jumped upon to reveal, fruit so you can collect for points. And similar to how Super Mario Bros. Is broken out into worlds, Pac-Land is broken up into trips. And each of these contain 3 levels scrolling left to right, and 1 scrolling right to left as you return home. Now, unlike most platformers, you can only defeat the ghosts if you have a power pellet, though most of the ghosts can be evaded by jumping on their heads, as well as just dodging them entirely. Now, Pac-Land uses an unusual control scheme where you have left and right and jump, except if you double tap left and right, or left or right, double tap left or double tap right, you run. And you'll want to run a lot. And this is a holdover from the arcade version, which used buttons to control Pac-Man. No joystick. You had a left button, a right button, and a jump button, and that was it. And of course, it's a lot easier on an arcade machine to double tap a button than it is on a D-pad or controller. Also, unlike later platformers, the controls have no inertia. But if you tap left or tap right, Pac-Man will take an entire step forward or backward. So it's a little bit hard to nudge him precisely sometimes. So you have to be extra careful not to fall off of ledges. And if you're in midair, you can't steer exactly, but you can stop moving forward if you hit the opposite direction. And you'll be using that a lot when you have to do precision ledge jumping. So after every 3rd stage, you return Buttercup to, I guess, the fairy godmother or something, and she gives you these magic boots that let you jump repeatedly in mid-air. And I guess that's to make your return trip easier. And the return trip is kind of a condensed version of the last few stages in a different order, and you'll need to use the jump boots for sure. You could not make this trip back without the fairy godmother's help. Yeah, I think Pac-Land needs more recognition than it actually gets. Most people gloss over this, and it took me a few tries to really get into this game. I used to kind of brush it off as kind of a too simple platformer, but it really comes into its own once you start getting into the scoring. There's one scoring trick I couldn't pull off during this video. I'm actually playing this through a camera viewfinder, and it's pretty challenging. But if you eat ghosts in a specific order, you get this major bonus where you get rewarded for all your time, and then you get a time refill. And you do that by eating 4 ghosts, and then you eat Sue, the ghost who's pursuing you, as the 5th ghost. And yeah, Sue, this one ghost, pursues you through every level. So if you're going too slow, she'll catch up with you. But you can jump on her head and evade her if you're good. However, if you run out of time, she speeds up and you are hosed. And I like that. I think that's more interesting than just killing the player when you run out of time. You have a chance. You can go berserk fast at that point and evade Sue if you can just get to the finish line. Now, all in all, this is a pretty decent port of Pac-Land. It's got all the parallax from the arcade version, and so many of the other ports didn't do this, and it all felt a bit flat. However, there are a bunch of elements missing. So, for instance, on this water ruin stage, there's supposed to be fire hydrants, and in the arcade one, on the later levels, the fire hydrants fire these kind of water bullets at you, again similar to Mario Brothers' bullet kind of container things, and hey, those look like fire hydrants, don't they? But yeah, those add an element of challenge to that particular world, or stage rather, that is completely absent in this version. So the water stages feel kind of weirdly vacant in this port. That stage also had these kind of water jets that would pop up from the bottom of the screen, and those are gone too. So I don't know if they ran out of development time when they were working on the water stage or what. It does have the extra touch in the castle stage that you'll see later, where you have a flashlight, and a bunch of the other versions miss that. So, you know, it's not perfect, but it's a quite decent port of Pac-Land. And especially compared to other versions like oh my god, the NES version. Don't get that one. And I've ordered a copy of the PC Engine version of Pac-Land to just see how it compares. And it looks like that's going to probably wind up being the best of the bunch. This also looks like a quite decent Commodore 64 conversion, but I don't believe this runs in NTSC at all. I think if you have a PAL Commodore 64, you can play that one. Now, one thing that gives everyone issues in every version of Pac-Land are the springboards. I don't know what it is with video game springboards and them being just such a pain to figure out. Like in Milk and Nuts, this springboard took me a bunch of tries to figure out. And what you have to do, you have to go off it and hold jump. And at the same time you're holding jump, repeatedly press the left or the right button, whichever way you want to go. And that'll kind of cause Pac-Man to float. And I don't know if this was printed on the arcade cabinet as directions or not, but yeah, that took me a bit to figure out. I think I maybe eventually just looked it up. I can't remember. And here's the castle stage, which is reminiscent to me of these stages in Super Mario Brothers where you have to kind of go in a specific order to get past this kind of 2D platform maze. In this one, though, it's not as arbitrary. You have to kind of get keys, and those will help you find the shortest path, find the most fruit. And the biggest danger, like in the arcade version in this one, is just running out of time. And, you know, speaking of Mario Brothers, the music really reminds me of the Ghost House music in Super Mario World. Check this out. And I only have a few clock ticks left at the bottom of the screen before Sue comes and does whatever Sue does to Pac-Man. Is it ever explained why it is the ghosts are out to get Pac-Man? I mean, the ghosts don't seem like such bad guys, especially in the Saturday morning cartoon, which I believe Pac-Land is kind of based on. Especially the American version, I think, fixed up the graphics in order to match the cartoon better. And oh my god, I'm out of time, and Sue is zooming across the level and will catch up with me, and I am done. So that's Pac-Land, a fairly marvelous port of the 1984 arcade game. And wow, yeah, they did pretty well, especially considering this is a 1989 handheld. That's crazy. I think that although later platformers improved on Pac-Land's formula with more varied levels and more refined controls, that Pac-Man still has something to it that is just different from what you'll find elsewhere. I think once you discover some of the scoring and things like that and some of the tricks, it becomes addictive, and I had trouble putting this one down. I really enjoyed this game. I've sunk many hours into it, and I'm just still not sick of it. There's always something more to find in Pac-Land. And I guess that's also kind of like Super Mario Brothers, where, you know, one of the appealing things about Super Mario Brothers is that there are a bunch of secrets here and there. And, you know, in Pac-Man, you're pushing fire hydrant stumps and cacti, and in Super Mario Brothers, you're trying to go down various pipes to see if one might lead to a little coin room or something. So Pac-Land is cool, it's underrated. If you see it, pick it up. Anyway, I guess that pretty much wraps up Pac-Land, and if you want to, click like and subscribe and all that jazz. I'll see you next time.